Good morning, I'm Sergeant First Class Steve Morrison, and today we are here to discuss some best practices on reopening some high occupant facilities, places with open offices, some single offices. We'll talk about the different kinds of space that are within these office buildings and how we can implement some best practices to keep everyone safe as they begin to return to work. All right, so as we approach the building, we'll notice a few things. They have some signage on the doors telling the visitors that they must check in with security. And it also has a notice here recommending that when somebody comes into the building, if they can, instead of grabbing a hold of the handle and pulling the door open, they're actually going to touch the automatic door opener. That way it's less people that are touching the surface as they come into the building. We have the reception area set up. There's a person sitting here asking some questions, taking a temperature of each person who comes in. We have some X's marked onto the floor to show people where to stand to keep that social distancing of at least 6 feet.
Do you have a worsening cough or shortness of breath? Have you ever had a fever or new cough or shortness of breath in the last 14 days?
Obviously, if the answer was yes to any of these questions, or if they had a temperature higher than the recommended level, they would be sent home and asked to contact their doctor to get some direction from medical professionals. Realistically, we want to try to go ahead and control access to one entry and one exit. So we have our magnetometer set up here. That's a place where everybody's already going to have to go through. So this is an area where our guards can do the 5 questions that we're asking about from the health questionnaire, and using a no-touch temporal thermometer to get the temperature of everybody coming into the building. As we move in, he's ready to go upstairs and get to work. Standing here at the elevator, we have some signage that says we want no more than 2 people on the elevator at the same time. Of course, they're in close proximity, so they would both be wearing a mask as they're in the elevator. They don't necessarily have to wear their mask all day at work, but anytime they're going to be in close proximity to someone, especially if they can't maintain social distancing, both people should wear a mask. Since we have a restriction on how many people can travel in each one of the elevator cars at a time, for these it's no more than 2 people. Some people may choose to use the stairs. So some things that we need to think about: if there's a higher occupancy of people using the stairway, then we're going to make sure we clean the handles on the doors frequently, clean the handrails that are going up and down the stairs. And then as people are passing, it may be a good idea as you're going up and down the stairs, for each person to wear a mask, because the stairs are narrow. They're not able to maintain 6 foot of distancing between each other. So in public areas where you have a chance that you're going to pass closely with someone, it's recommended that you wear a mask. So here we are in your typical office cubicle area. We have several desks through here. The first thing we see as we walk in, we can tell that there's plenty of room inside of each one of the cubicles, that every person has their own personal space. As long as they're working inside the cubicle, nobody else is within 6 feet of them. It's fine if they can go throughout the day without a mask on. As we look in the cubicle here, we can see that the employees have their own can of disinfecting wipes. They have their own hand sanitizer, and that's a good practice that they can clean their own areas throughout the day. If everybody does their part to sanitize as we go, it's really going to help mitigate the potential for the spread of coronavirus through the workplace. We also see that these cubicles have a nice high wall to them. If they were down shorter, we would want to think about potentially putting some type of a barrier to meet at least this requirement, or taller. You can have plexiglass if the people need to be able to see face to face as they talk, but having something that as you're sitting down is at least head level is a good barrier, and it allows people in their workspace and they don't have to worry about wearing a mask. Another thing is kind of a courtesy. If you need to talk to someone in their cubicle, instead of going all the way in and talking to them like we might normally do, just stand at the threshold of the entrance to their cubicle. Talk about what you need to talk about, but you can still maintain that 6 foot social distancing. If for some reason you do need to go into their workspace and sit down and work with them or talk, you would want to put your mask on, because you would be in closer proximity than the 6 feet of social distancing that's recommended. All right, so here we are in an office, a single occupant office. It's a big space. Again, just like we did with the cubicles, if somebody needs to speak to the occupant of the office, it's best to stand at the doorway. Don't come all the way into the office and approach the person. And if I did need to come in and approach and encroach on that 6-foot distance of social distancing, we would both go ahead and put our masks on. That way we're both protected. We don't have to worry about any aerosolized droplets or anything like that spreading. And she's got some hand sanitizer in here, so when I walk in I would go ahead and clean my hands. And of course she's going to go ahead and keep her area clean and sanitized herself. It's just those good work practices that we talk about, everybody doing their part. And of course the maintenance will come in and clean up a few times a day, then perhaps a deep cleaning once a week. Here we are in the common office setting. It's a medium-sized conference room, and they've done a good job in setting this room up. Normally, before the COVID-19 hit, we would have all kinds of people crowded in here. They could all have a seat at the table. For a meeting where we don't have to have a bunch of people, this is a good solution. They've put some do not use signage on the chairs, and that's going to help maintain that 6-foot social distancing. Of course, if you can't get exactly 6 feet away from everybody in the meeting, it would be recommended that they wear a mask. But there are some other options we can do to kind of spread things out a little bit. So again, for a smaller meeting, this is good. If we need to get more people in here, we can remove the do not use signs and we can push some chairs out to the walls and out to the corners. And that way we're making sure that everybody has that 6-foot distancing to kind of keep everybody safe and comfortable. We've set this conference room up now with another option in the way that it can be arranged so that people can maintain 6 foot of social distancing, and we can still get more people in here than just cramming everybody around the table. As you can see, we've spread the chairs around the table out, and then we've pushed some of the other chairs out to the walls, and that helps maintain the distancing. Another thing we want to keep in mind, if we're going to have a meeting in a space like this, we want to sanitize it before people come in, and we want to sanitize it after the meeting, again helping to minimize the potential for spread of coronavirus. So in a break room, there's a few things that we want to look at. We have several buttons on the vending machines. We have the handle on the microwave, the handle on the sink, handle on all the cabinets that are in here, and those are somewhat high-touch surfaces. So we want to be careful when we come in here to, one, make sure before we touch them we cleaned our hands. That's going to eliminate the possibility of us spreading any contamination to those buttons. And also, if we can clean up after ourselves, when we come into an area like this, bring some sanitizing wipes with us, or maybe the facility can put a bottle of hand sanitizer in here. Good practice is before you touch the surface, put some hand sanitizer on your hands, leave it wet, touch the surface. So not only are you protecting yourself, but you're also cleaning the surface at the same time. Another thing they've done in here is you can see they've moved some chairs off to the side. Each of these tables had 4 chairs around it previously, but especially in a break room where people are eating and drinking, they won't necessarily be wearing a mask. So we've removed some chairs so that people can maintain at least 6 foot of that social distancing, and we don't have to worry about wearing a mask the whole time we're in an area like this. Another thing we want to do is have our building maintenance crew come through 1, 2, 3, 4 times a day and just wipe down all of the high-touch surfaces as well as cleaning the floor. And that's going to help us mitigate the potential for someone getting that contamination on their hands unintentionally. One good example of some measures that some people are taking, as this facility has done, shutting down public water fountains, shutting down public use coffee pots, things where people were drawn to and that a lot of people would be touching, and not necessarily thinking about the fact they need to sanitize their hands before and after they touch it. So if we shut these down for a little while, it's a bit of an inconvenience, but it does help protect everybody as we continue on through fighting against the COVID-19. All right, here we are in a courthouse setting, a facility that obviously is going to have some controlled entry points, which is advantage in a situation like that because realistically we want to try to go ahead and control access to one entry and one exit. So we have our magnetometer set up here. That's a place where everybody's already going to have to go through. So this is an area where our guards can do the 5 questions that we're asking about from the health questionnaire, and using a no-touch temporal thermometer to get the temperature of everybody coming into the building. We can also see they have marked on the floor here some spacing to give them that social distancing from the guards and their desk up here at the front. Here we have our reception area. You can see they've taken some measures. They put up signage to make sure people know what to do. They've actually covered the hole in our plate glass here to help prevent anything from going through there. We do still have a hole down here. Obviously business has to continue, so most of the people that are working the window would have a mask on, and then in the building they're requiring people coming and going about their business to wear a mask as well. And obviously there's some high touch surfaces here, so as a customer comes in, if they touch the desk or anything like that, after they leave there'll be someone come behind and sanitize that to make sure that we're preventing the potential for cross-contamination. So here we are in the waiting area outside of the courtrooms. Also, it's the exit for the elevators. And to set this space up, they've removed some of the seating out here. We do have a pew over here people can sit on. They have some signage that's out to remind people to keep their 6-foot distancing. And again, while people are in here, it is a requirement to wear a mask inside the building. One other thing we could do is possibly put some signage along the seating here to remind people, hey, don't sit here, and make sure we have that 6-foot spacing in between everybody that's in this waiting area. And then out here, another thing that they have, it's a very good idea, is we have a hand sanitizer mounted on the wall. It's touch free, so there's very little chance of somebody touching that and spreading contamination to that. Maybe put a sign up here to draw people's attention to it, and just a reminder, hey, as you walk past this, go ahead and use it. Again, mitigating this spread of coronavirus is everybody's job, and everybody has to do their own part to try to keep everything clean. And I want to take a minute to remind everybody, all these measures are great and they're extra measures we take, but the biggest thing we can do is to constantly keep our hands clean, keep our hands away from our eyes, our nose, and our mouth, and maintain that 6-foot social distancing. And that's going to be a large chunk of helping to mitigate the spread of coronavirus. Everything else, all these other measures that we're putting into play, are extra on top of that. But those 3 things that we can do, again, keeping our hands clean, keeping our hands away from our face, and maintaining social distancing, is going to go a very long way into keeping you safe and keeping you healthy. All right, so here we are. We're going to talk about the gallery a little bit. This is obviously where the public can come in and view a trial that's going on. Of course, everyone has the right to come in and view a trial, but we are going to try to limit the amount of people who are in here to the greatest extent possible. And of course, when people are sitting in the gallery, we need to make sure we're maintaining 6-foot distance between everybody, both from side to side, and then staggering who is sitting where in the pews to make sure that we have that 6-foot spacing front to back as well. All right, so here we are inside of a courtroom, and one of the precautions that we can talk about that they're going to take is that anybody that comes into the courtroom is going to be required to wear a mask. And another thing they're going to do is, before the session starts, every surface within the courtroom will be cleaned, and it will also be cleaned again after the court session. So they're making sure that all the surfaces in here, everything has been sanitized before and after a court session. So the tables will be wiped down. They'll use some Lysol or disinfectant on all the cloth materials. Another thing they're doing is the witness stand will be cleaned by the bailiff in between each witness to make sure that we're protecting each person that goes in. And then normal cleaning, for the stenographer and the judge, they'll clean off their areas themselves, or janitorial staff will come in and take care of that. Of course, the jury over here will have limited options for social distancing, so they'll be wearing a mask and then cleaning off their seats and things when they are finished with that.